Welcome to Reread. Today it's time to go through Book 3 of A.C. Crispin's Han Solo trilogy, Rebel Dawn. Took a lot of notes here. Just like the previous one, The Hutt Gambit, this one takes a few jumps from months in between. So there's a lot of adventures that previously I talked about that would come into play in between Rebel Dawn. Now, I say that because this one starts off with a high-stakes Sabbat game on, I believe it's Cloud City, where Lando loses the Falcon to Han. They actually show that. So, of course, Han has the Falcon, goes on all these incredible adventures, goes through Brian Daley's trilogy as well, and then fast forward a few months later, you have the end leading up to A New Hope. Is basically what it is. Now, I was questioning whether I would still put it here in the timeline, and I think I would. I don't see a better place for it, and I think this is fine. Now, there's a lot of notes that I took here, a lot of great things, some things I forgot that I didn't really know, or I just had forgotten. One was that Chewbacca has a sister. How did I not know that? Calabao. I had no idea. It's so weird that something that significant I would forget, but I totally forgot that they ever mentioned him having a sister. Of course, this is where Han is going to go home. He's going to marry Mala, and eventually later on, as he visits, 8 months later, finds out he has a son, Lumpy. Now, a Lumparo, of course. Now, of course, this is kind of where Shadow Games would fit in, because Han is going to give him more time with his family and then have that adventure with Dash Rendar. So, again, all these things would fit inside of Rebel Dawn. All these other stories would. There is Han meets Chak, who is Delwana's son. Delwana was the Wookiee that raised Han Solo. He also breaks up with Sala Zend in this one. They kind of have a fling together, and then he leaves her high and dry, which is basically setting up Dark Empire, why she's mad at him. And ZZ, the droid from Dark Empire, is also mentioned, even though it's not mentioned how Han got him, and he's not given much of a character. He's just mentioned a lot in that chapter and then in another one, just to show you that Han did have a droid named ZZ. Not that she had to force it in there. I just feel like she's like, well, I don't know what to do with this droid, so I guess she just didn't have much for him to do, but she wanted to mention him to tie it into Dark Empire. Now, with Sala Zend and how she did that all happened in one chapter, and it was good. Again, it didn't feel rushed as she's kind of sewing the continuity of all of Han's friends and backstories all together in one book. She does a great job with that. On the other end, Durga the Hutt is even mentioned here, which I'd totally forgotten about that mention in this book. Durga the Hutt is here. This is basically explaining how he gets hip deep into Black Sun's pocket and eventually starts working for Black Sun, which is where we're going to see him when we get to Darksaber. But at this point, he's still trying to investigate his father's murder. He figures it out. He knows it's with one of the high priests. He's furious at the high priest. The high priest is kind of getting ready to break away against Durga and kind of run his own spice operations right there on the planet. Everything's coming to a head at this point, but I am getting ahead of myself here. Durga is dealing with Prince Caesar, but he knows it comes as a price. And he thinks he can keep in control of it, but when a deal at the end goes sour, he's in Prince Caesar's pocket and decides, well, I'm all in. In for a penny, in for a pound. I'll just try to become a Vigo and an underlord in Black Sun, and then who knows, maybe even challenge the Empire or whatnot is what he's thinking. So basically, it sets off Durga's destiny here. Bria is in this one, and this is, and I don't know if because I'm reading in chronological order now, I don't care about her storyline. I don't care about her rebellion that she's running. I don't care. I mean, she finally meets back up with Han the first time in 10 years. This is way later on in the book. Convinces him to help overthrow the high priestess, all the priests at Yalicia or whatever, and free the slaves there that she was once a slave of. And of course, this is the big screw. She tells Han, tell all your friends, I'll give them 50% of the cut. And then eventually she takes everything for the rebellion and screws everyone, including Han, which leaves Lando mad at him. And now that I look at this, I'm thinking, well, why would Lando really end his relationship with Han over this? I mean, he'd be pissed about it, but he thinks Han got a cut too. It's a little weak. So oddly enough, I'm interested to see what Timothy Zahn's Scoundrels book has in store, because that may be a better reason why Lando's mad at Han. Because this one felt like, well, I mean, she skipped town. Why can't you believe Han? And Lando even built up a relationship with Bria. He should be mad at Bria, not Han. Han got screwed. And Han even says to Lando, why would I come to you if I made money off the deal and screwed you? Why would I come back to you? But Lando isn't hearing it. And then later on, it's kind of rushed at the end, but Bria dies in an Imperial raid. She's the one that sends the message to Princess Leia, even though she doesn't know who she's sending it to, but it's the beginning of New Hope. She sends the Death Star plans to her. And she doesn't even know what plans she's sending either. She's just a rebel fulfilling her orders, and then dying for the cause. Boba Fett, who she had encountered earlier in the book, Boba Fett captures Bria. Lando basically, after the Queen of the Empire is mentioned, which is in Jedi Prince series, which again I totally forgot. And on the Queen of the Empire, pirates attack it right as Boba Fett has captured Bria. Well, the pirates happen to be friends of Lando's that were in a previous novel, and they tell Boba Fett, you got to release Lando. He's staying with us. And Boba's like, fine. I just want safe passage off this, ship so I can take home my bounty. Well, then Lando's quick thinking goes, actually, you want to save this girl too, because this is the Bria that Han was talking about to us in the last one. And he's like, oh, the Bria who he named his ship after? And so it's like, okay, well, I'll pay the bounty and she's staying with us too. And Boba Fett's not happy, but he doesn't think he can take on all the pirates. I mean, he probably could, but Bria not being injured during that, he could not guarantee her safety. And that was what was most important. And I like that. I like that Fett was like, I could take all these guys, but Bria may be damaged and the priests do not want her damaged. So I'll call it a draw for now. Anyway, he comes back he comes back a couple of times, but he comes back in the end because at that time when Bria was captive by him, she promised him, when I die, when you hand me over to the high priest, he's going to kill me. And when I die, will you please track down my father and tell him? And Boba Fett promises to do that. Well, she never got around to telling Boba Fett who her father was, so when she does die, Boba Fett goes to Han and tells Han, hey, Bria died. I made a promise to tell her dad, but I don't know who her dad is. I figured you did, so I'm fulfilling my promise. I'm out. And so Han's all upset. Now, back to Lando being mad, if Lando was that mad and angry at Han, once he heard of Bria's death, do you think he'd be like, oh, that kind of sucks because she was a nice girl and everything? So again, I just don't feel that Lando would have been that angry with her. Now, of course, Han and Bria, they fell in love again, but then, of course, when Bria turns out to screw him and all his friends, Han hates her. Women, I hate all women. I'll never trust a woman again, just kind of setting up for him being the loner, and prior to Leia entering his life. Jarek Solo actually dies in this one. I remembered that. I just forgot how. He died in the raid, and it was kind of, it just says that he was down, he's injured, and it's bad, so you better come now. So how he got injured, I mean, he got it. It was during a firefight, but they don't really give much into his story. But he passes away. The only other thing here is at the end he speaks to Dash Rendar. They kind of say what's up to each other, and that's right before A New Hope is about to start. And she did that just to make a connection to Shaz the Empire. However, people have asked me, is this a contradiction from Shadow Games? Why would they just say what's up? What's up? What's up. Y'all just saw each other during Shadow Game. Yeah, but that was months later. This is, it's been a while. May have been a year, 2 years, who knows? Okay? But I don't see that as a contradiction at all. One thing that I do, in fact, AC Crispin did a great job. Rebel Dawn's good. I didn't know that Han was hardly in it. But the one thing I wish she would have done, in a deleted scene, Han is with a brunette as she walks away from the table, and Luke and Obi-Wan sit down. I wish she would have given that person a name, like maybe that was another lover of his or whatever, or the main character in the book who wasn't part of the rebellion. that they kind of had a fling, but they knew it would never work out or be serious. Of course, you don't have to bring up a character from a deleted scene to make, you know, to make everything make sense in continuity. Since it's a deleted scene, it really doesn't count, but I still wish you would have done that. Overall, A.C. Crispin's Han Solo trilogy is a good one. Again, Brian Daley, to me, is better, but I will never argue about anyone who thinks that A.C. Crispin is a better trilogy, because, yes, this is a good Han Solo trilogy, and I was happy to reread it. All right, folks, that's it for now. See you next time.